Great. All right, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday meeting with us at 11 here in KC. We are KC Oasis, and we're super duper happy that you decided to come and hang out with us on Zoom today. Maybe you're kind of stuck inside already because of the snow, so this is a good place to hang for Sunday. So yeah, my name is Genevieve, and I'd like to tell you a few things about today first. We have, of course, a very good lineup today. Our musical guest is Eddie Moore, and then we'll have our community moment with Christoph Sisson. I'm sure I'm getting it all wrong now. Okay, and then April Marshall will be with us. She is an art director and comedian, and she's going to tell us about herself a bit. So to tell you a bit more about KC Oasis, we are a place where we can gather around 5 core values, which are: people are more important than beliefs, meaning comes from making a difference. Reality is known through reason. Human hands solve human problems, and be accepting and be accepted. So we're really happy for you to join us. To get started, we have Eddie Moore. I'm going to read a little bit about Eddie for you. We got to hear a little bit of him tuning up, and it was just, it's going to be gorgeous to listen to him this morning, I think, especially with coffee and staying inside and all. So when you speak to Eddie Moore, you find an ocean of calm. And when you listen to Eddie Moore, you find the depth of that ocean. Eddie reaches from the soul with every note in a deep way, with a tension just below the surface. His yearning for exploration and curiosity in music contribute to an ebb and flow, freedom of expression. And while maintaining a busy tour schedule, Moore resides in Kansas City, where he's an integral part of the music community, creating opportunities for up-and-coming jazz artists through his incubator Tribe Studios. As a Charlotte Street Fellow and a member of the African America Arts Collective, he stays busy teaching several aspects of music through University of Kansas, Metropolitan Community College, Future Jazz, Midwest Jazz Camp, and privately at the Culture House. So welcome so much, Eddie.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, yay. So we'd love to hear some music from you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll start with an old one. This is it's on my first album, The Freedom of Expression. It's entitled With You. So. Thank you.
So amazing. So gorgeous.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I guess I'll do another one. This is a fresh one. You're the first to ever hear it. I just wrote it maybe like last week. I was quarantined and I was just feeling this one. It's called "A New You, A New Me." So I hope you enjoy. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's just, it does something to you. It's so cool. Yeah. We want to talk to you later, for sure. I've got lots of questions, but as like you were playing, all I could think about was I want to download your music instead of listening to a lot of political podcasts these days, and just like enjoy you for a while.
For sure, appreciate it.
Thanks, Eddie. We'll talk to you soon. And
You're welcome.
hear more. Thank you. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on. I think the next thing we have are announcements. So let's talk for a second. I know there are a couple birthdays coming up. Stephanie Stanton's birthday is gonna be on the 19th in 3 days, and Lila Schoenmeyer's birthday is on Wednesday, which would be the same day, I think. Okay, anyway, I hope you both have awesome birthdays. And before we move on to our community moment, it just so happens that our community moment person, who I should explain community moments first. We ask members of our community, near or far, since we have Zoom these days, to tell us something that's happening with their lives, or something they want to teach us about, whatever they're into doing these days. We'd love to hear from them, or yeah, anything's okay. Even if you needed to rant, I don't think Mark Dixon would mind. We're always open to our community connecting with us. So if you're interested in doing that at some point, please reach out to Mark Dixon about that. And today, Christoph Sisson is with us today. he's not in the area of KC, so we're really happy that he could join us. And I just learned yesterday from Maureen Kennedy that he shipped all these awesome little pill bottles that she loves to collect for Micah Ministries to help with people through Micah Ministries. So we really appreciate that you did that. I know she's always happy to share who's helping out with that. So thanks, Christoph. Also, the other thing is traditionally when we have a community moment, we ask for 3 words that describe them and then a warning label. So Christoph said that he is talkative, inquisitive, talkative, and Jason added caring. And as the warning label, it's still talkative. So thanks, Christoph. Let's hear what you'd like to talk about today.
Great. Well, hi, Oasis. It's been a while. The last time I spoke with you was actually in person, if you can remember those days, almost exactly 2 years ago. And it was about the topic of dementia. And so let me do my screen share here. I was admiring Bob and his chicken there. Why is share screen suddenly a mystery here? Jason, where am I looking in this new view? There it is. Found it. I'm blind.
Always happens when you're live.
Yep, always. I had it a moment ago. All right, and here it is. Here's the slides. Okay. So living with Alzheimer's. This is an update on parents with dementia, which is the community moment that I gave previously. Find the buttons here. So a quick recap. My mom and dad were both diagnosed with dementia in the fall of 2019, and I gave that talk on January 26, 2020. So really almost exactly 2 years ago. And was providing in-home caregiving at that time until my parents were able to move to assisted living in February of 2020, just before the pandemic changed our lives. My dad has had a long battle with health issues, lymphoma being one of them, and he passed in October. And so suddenly the situation of my mom being by herself, isolated by the pandemic in an assisted living where they were being extremely careful with, the virus. She was very isolated and has dementia. And so that was just not a good situation any longer. And so it took a while, but by March of 21, I had relocated back to Grand Rapids, which is where I'm from. I had been in Kansas City for 17 years and miss it dearly. Especially this morning when it was 3 degrees here. That was not not fun. And so we had been planning on selling their home, did not, because my dad's health changed. And so luckily their home of 30 plus years was still available to us. And so we're now back into that home. I had never lived here before, but now I'm her primary caregiver here. Dementia, I've been talking about this because there was so much that I just really didn't know. And I'm assuming that there's a lot that the public doesn't know because we tend not to talk about hard topics, especially when we don't have cures. And so this is just a recap on what dementia is. It's basically an impairment to the brain, usually memory, communication, and thinking processes. Alzheimer's itself is the most common form of dementia, and especially over 65, the population is at a great risk. And so the number of the US population with Alzheimer's is just going to continue to grow. And as you can see from the fourth bullet point there, almost 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's are women. So it's disproportionately amongst women, and that could be because women typically live longer. They're not exactly sure if it's also connected to the genes. So Lewy body dementia and vascular dementia, which my dad had, are two other major types of dementia, and there are a few others. But basically, there are all these groups of dementias that present differently and have different challenges. Lewy body is more related to body control. Vascular dementia is really about slowing everything down so that thought and thought processing and speech processing just become very labored. So, and then the sad truth is that 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or another dementia. So it's a huge problem. My guess is that you've either dealt with it in your family or will be dealing with it in your family. And so that's why I've continued to speak about dementia, because I know it's going to touch us all in some way. With Alzheimer's specifically, there's a lot of memory loss. And one of the people that I was speaking with related it to taking notes. Our brain is often taking notes. You remember the thing that you had yesterday for dinner. You remember the conversation with a friend that didn't go so well. You remember the, outing that you had where you saw a beautiful sunset. All of those kinds of things. Your brain is writing those things down. And a person with Alzheimer's is kind of like they've run out of ink. And so those memories are not being written down. And so they can't remember what they had for dinner yesterday. Or that great sunset that they were so impressed by. It's just like it didn't happen because they never recorded it. And then the other thing about recalling memories, that diminishes over time. And the way that this person that I was speaking with described it was like pages falling out of your notebook. The memories simply aren't there to recall any longer. So that means remembering who people are, how they're related to you, what their names are, becomes very difficult. And, some days my mom knows who I am, and some days she gets me switched around with other people. And it really depends on her health. And I'll get into that next. But, that it's sometimes quite disturbing when, to the person also with dementia, often it's disturbing because they know they should know that person, but they can't remember it. And so I've been building a memory wall for my mom so that she can go back in her hallway, look at the pictures. They're all kind of organized by family and friends, and remind herself. And that seems to bring her some comfort. Even if she can't do it with her brain, she can do it on the wall. So problem solving and following logical processes become more difficult or impossible. Driving and cooking become dangerous. Shopping, paying bills, taking medicine becomes haphazard, which can be dangerous. And so that's what's been going on for my mom. Dementia and infections. Oh my goodness. I heard this initially, and it just keeps recurring. When there's an infection for a person with dementia, their state of mind can very quickly shift to babbling, hallucinating, forgetting who they are, where they are, what's going on. It's amazing how much an infection can impact the symptoms of dementia. And urinary tract infections happen to be really common amongst older people. And that's been my mom's issue. She has recurrent UTIs. And so we've been doing almost everything we can, but now we're really starting to, I say force, but strongly encourage drinking water. And so the unfortunate truth is that even after an infection has been cleared, the individual may not completely bounce back to their previous level of clarity. So the Ginger, my mom, the Ginger that I had when I first brought her back to her house April 1st, and the Ginger that's here now in January, are at different levels. She had been at early stage Alzheimer's when I brought her out of assisted living, and now she's at mid stage. And so her level of confusion is definitely more pronounced than it had been. And that is unfortunately because of some of the setbacks that she's experienced, but also the progression of the disease. Eventually, a person with Alzheimer's forgets how to breathe. And this is what a person with dementia dies from, is the complications of the brain not functioning to the point of their physical health deteriorating until death. And so that was a rude awakening. As I was looking for assisted living, one of the directors of a assisted living place said that her mom had died of Alzheimer's. And I said, what? Wait, what? You just said died of? And I just hadn't been familiar with the fact that you could die of dementia, but that's what happens. So our caregiving focuses for my mom, a person with dementia. We're living in a familiar setting and keeping as many things around her that are familiar as possible. That we did make her assisted living apartment look as much like her home as possible. Now she's back in her home, so that's great. Sticking to a predictable routine for her is very important. Providing engaging activities is, what helps her feel like she's still a person that's with it and engaged with the people around her as much as possible. Exercise is very important. Again, that's just good for all around health, but it's especially important for a person with dementia. And as I've found out over time, drinking a lot of water is extremely important. And then for the caregiver, getting predictable breaks for self-care is top of the list. And so if you know someone who is caring for someone with dementia, help them by giving them breaks, and a predictable break, knowing that I have Wednesday nights off is fabulous. And I get to go. Right now I'm in a bowling league. It sounds silly, but man, that's kind of a lifeline for me. And that kind of thing, even if it's not a predictable scheduled thing, just knowing that there are opportunities to take a break is really important, because you have to do self-care in order to care for somebody else. And then participating in a dementia support group. So one of the things that I decided early on, I have a little bit of background in radio and telling stories and the like. And so I decided, you know what, we could do a podcast. And so in September, I launched the podcast called Living with Alzheimer's. And the guests have been professionals in the dementia space. So we're talking about topics related to dementia and caregiving. And then we're also chronicling Ginger's journey as much as possible. And her memory is sometimes a little convoluted, so that's interesting. But it is, she has amazing insight. She kind of cuts to the chase sometimes. And so it is an interesting thing to take her along for this ride and have her be participating and talking about the topic. So the goal is to provide a resource to others who want to learn about dementia and get tips for caring for someone with dementia. And it's available on all the major podcast outlets, as well as Living with Alzheimer's website, which is lwalz.com. So that's the living with, and then the ALZ for Alzheimer's.com. I'll put that in the chat. The one thing that I've learned, because I have a lot of help from the Alzheimer's Association, they've been my guests often on the podcast, but also they've been a consistent resource for me, is this 800 number. And they will talk to you about pretty much anything related to dementia. If you're concerned about yourself, and if you, just a simple, like, how can I avoid this? There's some history of it in my family. What can I be doing for myself? If you're wondering how, if what you're observing in a parent or a friend is potentially dementia, you can call them up and discuss it with them. And they're going to connect you with some resources, whether it's reading materials, a group, another professional, et cetera, and give advice that way. A number of people who are doing caregiving are dealing with difficult behaviors that they weren't expecting. My mom is pretty helpless when she is not feeling well. So during those times of infection, she pretty much needed everything done for her. But when she's feeling better, she's a little sassy. And sometimes it's a little bit like dealing with a teenager who really doesn't want to do the things that need to be done or would be good for her. And so, that whole how do you handle that and give grace to the person and save their, their own personal self-worth, to honor them. That's difficult to navigate. And so Alzheimer's Association has helped with that as well. And then if you're looking for a dementia support group, they can line you up with that as well. So that's the message that I want to leave you with, is that there is help out there and information to be had through this 24/7 dementia helpline. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Christoph. This is such a heavy topic, and one I think a lot of us can, at least we've had, our experiences, I think, somewhere in our lives with dementia or Alzheimer's. So yeah, this was so informative. I'm curious for you, like, would you say it's pretty much a 24-hour job these days?
Thankfully, I have some predictability to the schedule. So my mom sleeps consistent. Again, when she's healthy, she sleeps consistently. When she has an infection, that all goes off the rails. So if she's not feeling well physically, then my job is difficult. But when she's right now at her stage of dementia, I get breaks during the day. I can read a book, I can watch a show, I can, work on the podcast, whatever. But yeah, then there are times where I'm on, and especially in the evenings. I didn't really touch on the topic of sundowning, but as it gets dark each day, the symptoms of dementia worsen pretty dramatically. So my mom will know exactly where everything is in the house at 2:00 in the afternoon, and at 8:00 she'll wonder when someone is going to take her home, and that can be difficult, and that happens every day. So there's this moment of clarity during the day, typically in the afternoon when the day is fresh, and then in the evening it starts going downhill. So things like that change on a day-to-day basis, but it's fairly predictable right now. There will be a point at which I'm going to have to do the bathing and maybe even feeding. And today I don't have to do those things. I have to do all the cooking and cleaning and that kind of thing, but there's a lot of things that she's still independent enough to do.
That's awesome to hear. And I'm glad it hasn't gotten too, heavy for you. Also, I think it's so amazing that you are so proactive about taking something like this experience, and like deciding, okay, I want to inform others. I want to do something that's, for the betterment, doing good work. I think that's awesome. Yeah, that you're doing that as well. And I appreciate, you telling us about it. And Jason was nice enough to, Christoph put it up. Okay. Thanks, Christoph, for that, for adding the links for your podcast. Also, David would like to say that he thanks you for sharing. Although therapeutic, it can't be easy. It is true that we often avoid discussing these issues because they are uncomfortable to think about. So thank you. I agree. I also kind of think that it almost feels like when you talk about your parents that, when things are not what they used to be, it almost feels like you're kind of betraying them, or for me, it's a very weird area to handle.
Parenting your parents is a weird turn. And I've apologized to my children up front. Said I might be a little argumentative, and you're just going to have to roll with that and do what's best for me anyway. So apologies up front.
That's awesome insight as well, to just prepare everyone, down the road for themselves. Yeah, great. Did anybody have any questions before we finish with Christoph? Yeah. Maybe everybody's okay. Yeah, but I know that you have to go soon too anyway, but thanks again, Christoph. This was really super informative, and I know we all wish you the very, very best, and condolences also with your father's passing too.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. It's wonderful to see you all.
Yeah, we appreciate that you'd want to come and join us too, for sure. Okay, great. Thank you, Christoph. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to our coffee. Oh, I take that. Yeah. Coffee break first, and then musical guest will be back. Eddie will be back after we take a little break. You're going to get put into a Zoom room if you like, or you can escape once you get in there if you want to just be by yourself for a little bit. But if you do go into a break room, you're going to get mixed in with some other, KCOACians, and hopefully get to know each other a little bit for the breakout time. So have some fun, guys. If Jason helps me, we'll see. Yay. Okay, thanks, Jason. Okay, thanks everyone for taking a break. We're glad you came back. We're gonna get started again with some more gorgeous music from Eddie Moore. If you go on the chat, you can see some different links to support Eddie and his music. So yeah, thanks Eddie for coming back, and let's hear some good tunes.
For sure. This is another original. It's entitled "Saved by the Bell." It's like one of my favorite shows growing up. I don't know how representative the song is of the show, but for some reason it just made me think of it as a great title. So here we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, just gorgeous. Okay, yeah, thanks. And we'll definitely talk at the end. I have lots to ask you. Yeah. Okay, thanks again, Eddie. All right, so we're moving on to our main speaker. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about her. So if you just wait 1 second. Yeah, so today we have April Marshall with us, and April Marshall is a woman of many passions. Professionally, she is an art director for the global advertising agency VMLY&R, as well as a regional director of volunteerism for VMLY&R. Additionally, in her professional life, she serves as an advisor for LGBTQ plus initiatives, is the producer of VMLY&R's by
BIPOC.
BIPOC, thank you, podcast, and is the chair of neurodiversity. Awesome. In her spare time, she works tirelessly as an advocate for transgender rights and ending the stigma of mental illness, speaking to groups about the causes she champions. Personally, she has been a stand-up comic, a professional wrestler, an actress, singer, playwright, and photographer, ran the Kansas City Rocky Horror Picture Show Shadowcast for 8 years, and was even once on Jerry Springer. She is also working on 2 new podcasts to be released in 2022. April lives in Kansas City with her 2 beloved dogs, Clutch and Chloe. Thank you so much, April, for being with us today. We're really excited to hear what you'd like to talk about, and let us know about your life. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and really glad to get an opportunity to speak to all of you this week. In order to talk about what I want to talk about, you got to know a little bit about me first. And so I've prepared something for you. Should have been pulling that up the whole time. Here we are. Okay. It is my contention to you today is that gender is not what's in your pants, which is unfortunately where a lot of people seem to get hung up. So, who am I? I'm April. I'm just a transgender woman who has refused to live in stealth. I decided that it was important to me to try to be an advocate and to educate and to be the person that a lot of people needed me to be. A lot of times that means being a unicorn, as I put it, where I am very open to questions. And so please, if you have any, you see a link at the top of the slides if you want to do one anonymously or put them in the chat or whatever. I would love to answer them, because I understand that for a lot of people, I may very well be the first transgender person they've consciously known in real life. And there's questions there, and that isn't a bad thing. And so as long as I know you're not trying to offend me, promise I won't get mad. So I do a lot of work with the with neurodiversity as well, which is also, of course, very important to me. But this is something that I prepared on TikTok, and all my links will be out there. But this is something that I did that was presented at my job because I had come out at work by this time. And you want to know something? Perfect, it cut it off. You want to know something? Could have been chicken butt. Apparently, it cut off the end of the video, and I had faith that it wouldn't do that. That was dumb. Well, essentially... Oh, there it is. I spent 43 years trying to be someone that I wasn't, and it was slowly killing me. All the things that you heard that I had done, yeah, pro wrestler, stunt person, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I did a lot of things, all to try to figure out who I was, but none of those things worked because there was a hole that just ate up everything around it. And so it really was, in a very real way, a cancer inside of me. This doubt, this knowing something was wrong, but not being able to say 100% what it is. So now that you know a little bit about me, and we'll come back to some stuff here, but I want to start at the very beginning. We all pretty much know this. We're taught it anyway. Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina. Yeah, it sounds a little silly to be hearing it in this context like this, but this is from a very early age. We're taught in binary terms that, you know, penis, vagina, boy, girl, blue, pink. And we begin to accept these arbitrary ideas that have been put out there. But what if you were someone that felt different? What if it didn't seem quite so binary? I mean, were you born a boy? Were you more emotional? Cried easier than other boys? Were you ever jealous of the girls because their toys were more fun? Did you ever feel like you preferred girls' clothes, or you just were jealous of their clothes? It was too constricting. It felt wrong. And why can't I wear pink or blue or purple or whatever color? And if you were a girl, born a girl, can you relate to, you know, being called a tomboy? And you were just being you. You didn't feel less feminine. You didn't feel like less of a woman. Jealous of the boys because their toys were so much more fun. Or clothes. Your clothes felt wrong, not functional. How can I play and get dirty in a dress? These are, if you ever felt any of those emotions, then on some level, you can relate to what it's like to have an incongruity in your gender. And the crazy thing about it is, you can never really quite explain what it is to be transgender any more than the way that I just tried to here. So, because it's your gender is something that is core to you. It's part of you. And it's one of those things that's a descriptor of you. You know, one of the first things. So when that is, excuse me, I lost my place real quick. I'm a little nervous today, sorry. But that it's one of those core things to us as human beings. And so when one of those main elements is out of balance or unstable, it throws everything else into chaos. It will make everything just a little bit harder. You know, it's having one table leg that's a little shorter than the others. And this has always been one of my favorite quotes from Iggy Pop. I'm not ashamed to dress like a woman because I don't think it's shameful to be a woman. Iggy being known for throwing on the gown or two, you know, if he was keeping on clothes at all. But the feelings, what if it goes further? What if it goes more than those base things? You know, you start to withdraw from others because you just can't relate. And you're constantly questioning yourself. Oops. You're constantly questioning yourselves. You think there's something wrong with you. You think something is broken inside of you. So that leads to a lot of different issues that come up as far as trying to define what it is, because it isn't the most relatable thing in the world. So it's important to know this. Sex and gender are not the same thing. Gender is a person's expression. It's how they identify and identify internally and present externally. It is the heart of who we are. Sex, well, your sex is determined basically on primary and secondary gender markers, reproductive organs, and as you get older, breasts, etc., and as well as organs, genes, hormones. And, excuse me, now like sex, like gender, sex is also not binary. It seems like it would be a little bit more binary, but there is cases with intersex individuals as well that are born with partially male and female reproductive organs. So, speaking of that, so how many genders are there? Well, how many colors are there? It's a little bit, it's not exactly the same, but the point is that there are a lot, it being on a spectrum, being on a spectrum, there's a lot of opportunities for deviation and for exploration. But I feel that there are 5 primary genders. It starts with male, female, intersex, agender, and non-binary. From these 5 primary genders, you pretty much get to most gender identities that are out there. Male or female being trans or cis, intersex being their own groups as well, non-agender ascribing to no gender norms whatsoever, and non-binary being more fluid and a little different there. So obviously it adds up to a lot of possibilities. So I guess, why do I think it's important to sit here and bore you with lots of data and information and rambling stories? Why do I think it's important enough to take your time this morning to talk about it? It's because we need help. Being transgender is still not safe. And whether it is out and out physical assault or whether it's exclusion and misunderstanding and anywhere along that spectrum, we are constantly in fear of what can happen. As you can see here, I've got some numbers up that are primarily towards some of our transgender youth. If you take a look at those. What I did not expect was all the problems. I did not expect, I really felt almost that we were in a better place for young trans people, but then I forgot where we live. And I realized it's still a problem. 50% will try to attempt suicide. And because they simply don't feel like they matter, like they exist. And when we look at some of the adult statistics out there, we're looking at 67% unemployment rate. Nearly 3/4, nearly 75% will attempt suicide at some point. And the largest individual group that goes into the large numbers that wind up going into working into to sex work of some kind. Not shaming sex work at all, but when it's kind of being forced and that's your only option, that's a problem. And the unemployment numbers, I've experienced it firsthand. I tried to job hunt as a transgender woman, and I don't want to do that again. It's hard to do that, and because a lot of times people will. There's actually a fantastic book called Truth Selves, and in there there's the story of one transgender woman who was a very accomplished vehicle engineer, or an engineer working for a car company, and she came out as transgender, and not long after she was laid off, and she tried to find work, and could not find anything, and eventually decided to detransition so that they could try to see if they could find something. Almost immediately found a job, waited about 6 months, came out there, and mysteriously found themselves getting laid off again. These are the kind of things, and you'll say, oh, well, they can't do that. That's illegal. Well, they don't put that reason down on the paperwork as to why they fired you. So it is a problem that still occurs. Now, it occurs to me that I need to go a little bit further back. I came out as transgender officially in 2016, but I really had known for a much longer time, and ever since I was about 3 years old, I knew something was different about me, that I didn't relate to the boys. I related just to the girls, and I didn't want to get dirty like the boys, and I thought their stuff was cuter. I wanted to be a princess too. So I eventually started kind of feeling more comfortable in that state, and my mom found my clothes when I was about 12, and I got the crap beat out of me. So that was kind of my first experience with someone finding out. Like, I knew it was something that was not normal, that people didn't do, but I didn't see it as dangerous before. But I tell that story to reiterate the bad reactions that happen for trans people. And so what do we do about it? Well, it's pretty simple. We listen. We learn. We advocate. And we care. That's mostly what you have to do. Advocacy, being an ally, is so important and so easy to do. Ask questions if you have questions. Care about me. Don't treat me any differently. Advocating that if you heard someone making a transphobic joke, you would stop them just like you would stop someone if they started making a racist joke. Because that's wrong and you're going to stand up for it. Learn. Don't be afraid to do your own research. And in fact, if you ask most trans people, they can give you book recommendations that will help you out. We want people to understand us. We're not starting a secret society or anything. We want you to understand us, and we need that from our allies to make it a little bit better for everybody. Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking for that. Oh no. Sorry about that. Came to the end of the slides there. I was trying to change out my slide deck, and it took a while to get that done. So that's kind of a little bit of my story, and I'm sorry I got a little nervous and I started disjointing everything. But so I mostly rambled there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. Um, but I encourage you to, before judging others for being what you see as gender divergent, think about the times that you've maybe not felt 100% aligned, and that maybe that'll give you a little perspective.
Thank you so much, April. I know, let's talk first about some things in chat, and then I have questions and maybe others will put some questions up. So David said that his medical company has changed the results reporting system to include gender identity, a gender identity spot. So that's awesome. It does seem like, it really seems like a socially cultural thing that we need to do. Like I feel like it's growing and growing as far as like being more accepting of trans people, right? Like we can even look back 2 decades ago how outliers just like homosexuality was. And it does seem like, and also like representation, the more that we see you, the more that it becomes more normal, right? And so it's awesome
Sure.
that you could be with us and just to,
Oh, the
you
fact that
know,
Laverne Cox became a star, that was huge, for visibility to go, this is a trans woman, not somebody you see on RuPaul's Drag Race. This is a trans woman. She's beautiful, she's talented, and she's amazing. And we'd much rather that everybody think of Laverne Cox as the queen transgender woman and stop thinking about Caitlyn Jenner, because she does not represent us.
So some questions came up. So a different David's asking, we are usually, a very LGBTQ friendly plus friendly community. What would you recommend us doing? Like, how could we help, especially, I guess, in the KC area? Let's talk about that since we're
Yeah.
all here, basically.
Well, I always say there's a lot of opportunities to educate yourself, and that's always the number one thing. I meant to mention as well that I have a website called transoutloud.com, and it is meant to be kind of a. When I was transitioning at first, I got really frustrated because it was hard to find um, resources for transgender women or men, that wasn't sexualized or about dating or more for drag queens or cross dressers. And so I wanted to create something that was just for transgender people, non binary people, with workouts to help shape your body, things like that. So, and that's a good place for getting some resources for books and on education. But locally, we have the Center for Equality, for the LGBTQ community, and they have an equals. There are some transgender clothes drop-offs that transgender people can come in and be able to shop in there and get things that. So if you have anything that you're looking to donate, consider them. They are That's a really huge one, especially for young people. That's one of the hardest things is when you're that age and you're trying to establish your gender identity and your parents aren't supportive and well you don't really have a job, so it's hard to be able to do, and these can be the first steps. I certainly had my first things that made me feel better, validated.
Great.
Um,
Also, we have more questions. I want to get to them too. What are your experience or what experiences have you had with I guess, trans community? I'm not sure, or trans issues and being an art director.
um, Thankfully, not much. There's always, let me phrase that correctly. My company, VMLY&R, is phenomenal for the LGBTQ community, and they have been nothing but supportive of me from the very beginning. They were ready to change my name on my communications before I was. I was like, okay,
Can you tell us a little bit about them first? Because yeah, that would be awesome.
Yes, VMLY&R is part of the WPP network. It is a global advertising agency that has accounts all over the world, and they are considered one of the best places in America to work for a transgender LGBTQ plus person. And it's also consistently voted as best places in KC to work, best places in the U.S. to work. They put forth a lot of effort with their DEI initiatives that I'm proud to be a part of as well. So being that I work there, I have had people go out of their way to make sure that I feel included. We worked on a project called the Proud Pronoun Project. And with that, people could they could put in their pronouns and come up with a really cool graphic that they could use as a background for their Zoom meetings or whatever. To have that, because we wanted to promote people normalizing the use of pronouns in the workplace, that didn't need to be a weird thing. So working on that, I've been an advisor on a couple of other projects that I can't talk about, but that have shown inclusion. Now, here's where I got to but there is something there. It's frustrating to me to know that it's still hard to get the representation in there in photography, imagery, messaging, things like that. That's a constant battle, but it's a difficult one when you're dealing with clients, and it's not just VML making the decisions. But generally, my experience has been good. If you ask me my general work experience, stellar. I had no hiccups at all. I've never been misgendered or dead named there at all. And everyone has been supportive, and they were April, very first day. So.
Awesome. That's so good to hear. I'm glad you're in such a place that, is considering, everyone is so inclusive that way, or it tries to be.
Yeah, I mean, and actually, I also advise on their transitioning guidelines that will apply to a lot of different stuff, but just kind of how things will work. So that's another thing that I'm really proud of to have gotten to do.
Awesome. We've got a couple more questions.
Sure.
Bob's asking, is drag for comedy, like a la Milton Berle, considered offensive?
It depends on the joke, honestly. I mean, if the punchline is, you're a girl, yeah, that's offensive, that's stupid. But, it really depends on it. Like, some people will find offense at people in drag for a sketch, a la Kids in the Hall or whatever, or Saturday Night Live. And it's like, no, I'm not going to find offense at that just because it's like, maybe they just really liked the funny voice they did in this scene and wanted a different look for it. I don't know. But honestly, I'm not really offended by that.
And can you share more about the volunteer initiatives you're doing and what we can do to help more of business community to be trans friendly?
Well, with a lot of the volunteer initiatives, I'm going to be speaking with the Junior League and getting to talk to some of their young people, because they are talking a lot about pronouns and gender in the workplace, and normalizing talking about that. So I'm really excited to get to do that. We are just firing things up for the year at VMLY&R. So we're still figuring out what all of our initiatives are going to be this year. We did have some work with Habitat for Humanity on some LGBTQ plus builds, which was a really outstanding experience to get to do. And as far as businesses being trans friendly, teach people how to be inclusive. You know, if you have a business, make sure that, you know, if you're not sure about somebody's gender, don't be afraid to ask, what are your pronouns? Don't ask their gender, ask their pronouns. I almost messed that up. You know, to be inclusive, and once you know someone's pronouns, make them feel as much at home as they would make anybody else in the store. You know, don't go over the top, but just make sure they feel included. You know, you may be the first shop person that hasn't made them feel ashamed for coming in, you know, or that they're afraid to show their face the entire time that they're doing business with somebody because they don't want to be judged. So just being understanding and a little bit proactive can go a long way.
Awesome. April, thank you so much for your, well, you know, first your willingness to tell us, you know, about your personal life and your journey so far, and, you know, how far you've come. I know we all want to continue to see you thrive and, you know, live your best life. And it's nice to know that you're at least, you know, in a place that seems to be supporting you, you know, with your workspace or workplace. Yeah, I appreciate you coming and educating us more about it too. So thank you so much. I think we should all give April a big round of applause. Yay, thank you. We usually do silent ones. We'll do a big one at the very end. We always like to do a big one at the end. Just, yeah, clap, clap. So, okay. Thanks again, April. Okay, so we're almost done for today. We got a couple more things to do real quick. So as Oasis is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, we are entirely volunteer staffed and donation funded. Our program today is just a part of the wide range of informational, educational, motivational speakers we offer most Sundays. If you appreciate what you've heard and seen, please consider making a donation. There are several ways to donate. And we can see also, Jason's been so awesome and, you know, continuing to put up links for April. She's got a bunch that would be really cool, I think, to check out. Plus, Jason's just put up some info about our nonprofit. Yeah. So then, okay, so there's several ways to donate. We are credit and debit card donation. You can buy credit or debit card donations, and you can text 816-839-7656 with the dollar amount you'd like to give. Recurring weekly or monthly donations can be set up online through Simple Give. If you go to our website, kcoasis.org, and click on donate at the top of the homepage. All right, so we're gonna end with some more incredible music from Eddie Moore. I know it's been such a treat just to listen to you. Yeah, I wish I could play so magically. Wow, yeah, just incredible.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you. It's always a fun way to spend my Sunday morning. So,
before we play, can we talk a little bit about, you know, what you've been doing these days? Anything we can look forward to seeing you in or hearing?
Definitely. Been super busy. It's kind of crazy. I just started at KU, so I designed hip hop and American culture history class for the kids. It's all online, so that's been keeping me pretty busy, and then teaching combo there. So I love teaching college, so I'm glad I'm at KU. Been writing a lot of music, coming out with some new stuff in a couple of months. A new single with We the People, and then another couple of solo tracks for myself. One of ours just got placed in the new Berle show coming out on, I think it's February 13th. So if you are hip to that, the director is actually from Kansas City. It's Morgan Cooper. So hopefully we go. And that'll be fun to watch. I think it's coming out on Peacock. And then just kind of not really doing a whole bunch of live performances, but still staying super active. We're building a studio incubator for just kind of musicians and artists a DIY space where you can come and create, come hang out, more like a songwriter's lab. That should be open in March, and it's been a lot of fun.
That sounds incredible. Just to have a place for anybody to make music. Yeah.
Yeah, the rooms will be of different sizes to accommodate different size groups and just kind of creative environments. And it'll be something new for the city and something hopefully the artists will like.
No, it sounds awesome. Jason's put some more info about Eddie up, and so I'll let you go ahead and play one more tune for us today. Thank you, Eddie.
For sure. Thank you for having me again. Played a lot of contemporary music, so I'll play standard. This is one of my favorites from the American Songbook. It's called Like Someone in Love.
Eddie, I'd like to interrupt. Can you flip or music to original sound down a little bit?
Turn it on. It's on.
Okay, everybody. Can we all give a big clap to Eddie and also April, and of course Christoph too, if he's still around. Thank you, everybody. This was such a lovely, meeting with all the OACNs today. Thanks again. I hope everybody has a good afternoon and enjoys Sunday, and hopefully maybe you'll do something educational tomorrow for MLK Junior Day. Yeah, thanks again to our presenters, and we'll see you next week.